What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to bring you my top 5 breakout candidates for fantasy football. I did this video last year. It did really good numbers, and I'm bringing it back again this year. So this week is what we're going to call Superlatives Week. We are going to be giving you guys our top 10 breakout candidates, our top 10 sleepers, and our top 10 busts for fantasy football. Me and Danny are going to tackle 5 each. We actually had a draft going over which players we would get for each list, but that is what the game plan is going to be for this week. And we're also going to sprinkle in some must draft players at each position, some mock drafts, things of that nature. It's grind 30 for us. It's the final week of the off season for fantasy football. The NFL season kicks off a week from this Thursday. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm ready to get into this. And once we get into this video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 breakout candidates in descending order. And at the end of the video, I'm going to review last year's list just for fun to see how accurate it ended up being. So if you enjoy this video, if you're new to the channel, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button, like the video if you do enjoy, and comment any of your thoughts down below. Comment down below your favorite breakout candidate this season at any position. We're going to hit the intro and then we're going to get right into this. Okay, breakout candidate number 5. The first guy we're going to talk about today is Devonta Smith, wide receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles, currently going off the board at ADP wide receiver 35, 81 overall per multi-site ADP, number 73 overall pick on Underdog Fantasy. So this is casual fantasy football player time of the year, so I'm not going to assume anything. I'm going to assume you know absolutely nothing about Devonta Smith. So sorry to the diehard players who knew exactly who Devonta Smith is, but I got to appeal to everyone here. So Devonta Smith was the 10th overall pick out of the University of Alabama in this past year's NFL draft. The Philadelphia Eagles traded up with their division rival Dallas Cowboys to select Devonta Smith and secure the Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver. As you guys can see on the screen, Devonta Smith, 6 foot, 170 pounds, a bit undersized, but that production's off the charts. 96th percentile college dominator rating, 98th percentile college target share. And this is despite having heavy competition in college. 4 targets, with Calvin Ridley as a freshman being there, with Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, and future first rounder of next year's draft class, John Mechie. So that's 6 first-round wide receivers that this dude had to compete with for targets and 3 other top 15 overall draft picks. Smith produced once he got this opportunity in 2019 and really produced like a madman. 37 touchdowns in 2 seasons from 2019 to 2020. You guys can see his production on the screen. His massive 2020 campaign, almost 1,900 yards and 23 touchdowns, led to him winning the Heisman Trophy and the Alabama Crimson Tide winning the national championship. The appeal for Devonta Smith, in my opinion, is quite simple. This is a mega talented wide receiver coming into an offense that has no target competition virtually. Courtesy of Reception Perception, and I'll explain quickly what Reception Perception is. Reception Perception is a site that Matt Harmon created, who's a kind of a wide receiver guru, where he tracks each route that each player runs in every single game and determines how much separation they're getting, if they're winning the rep, if they're getting the ball, getting targeted, whatever. He tracks it all. And courtesy of Reception Perception, you guys can see Devonta Smith was above average or average on 9 of his 10 routes in college. This was a guy that was an elite separator, 90th percentile versus man coverage, 87th percentile versus zone coverage, and 89th percentile versus press coverage. Matt Harmon wrote in his player write-up, when it comes to route running, there's no need to mince words. Devonta Smith is without a doubt the best separator in the NFL draft. So this is a guy that is great at getting open. The Eagles drafted first-round wide receiver in 2020 last year, Jalen Reagor, ahead of Justin Jefferson. And I don't think they were willing to make that mistake again. We saw Justin Jefferson, who is a great separator as well, produce a prolific rookie season last year. The Eagles weren't going to make that same mistake twice. Jalen Reagor posted absolutely awful reception perception numbers as a rookie last year. In my opinion, he's going to be a bust at the NFL level. You can see first percentile versus man. Matt Harmon actually said that Jalen Reagor's 40.8% success rate versus man coverage is the second worst mark since 2014 in the history of reception perception, and one of the worst marks against press coverage as well. So am I scared of Jalen Reagor stealing targets from him? Absolutely not, because I think the guy is complete trash. Route runners translate to the NFL. They translate quickly too. His college teammates, Jerry Jeudy and Calvin Ridley, both showed immediate signs of being able to win against man coverage at the NFL level, and they've been great pros so far in their time in the NFL. Devonta Smith has a legitimate 120 target upside as a rookie, now reunited with his former college quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He's currently my highest rated rookie wide receiver, ahead of Jamar Chase, and currently my wide receiver 26 overall in fantasy this year. I am not the least bit concerned with his size. I know that is the biggest concern for a lot of people, but as I mentioned, this is a guy that produced a 90th percentile rating against press coverage in college. We've already seen him cooking DBs in preseason games. And this is a guy that really resembles a guy like Chad Johnson, Marvin Harrison, and his teammate Calvin Ridley. All of these guys have been able to succeed because of route running, despite being smaller framed players. And Harrison and Ocho Cinco did it in an era that is even tougher to do it. Now in the NFL, it's a lot easier to succeed as a smaller player with Devonta Smith. So he's a big-time breakout candidate for me. I hope you guys take advantage of his 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round ADP, where you're sometimes able to get him and get him on your bench. Honestly, he's a guy that I love getting as a flex option because I think this is a legitimate 120, 1,100 yard and 6 touchdown type of rookie season for Devonta Smith. Breakout candidate number 4 on this list, DeAndre Swift, running back of the New York. Breakout candidate number 4 on this list, DeAndre Swift, running back of the Detroit Lions, currently going off the board as pick 35 overall, how I might add, and running back 17. He's currently the 38th overall pick on Underdog drafts as well. I see a lot of DeAndre Swift slander, so I'm basically going to address DeAndre Swift's situation one concern at a time. Now let's start with Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams is a big concern for a lot of people on DeAndre Swift because they don't know if DeAndre Swift is going to get the volume. And, a lot of people will peddle the narrative that volume is king. So let's address the volume of DeAndre Swift. When we think of starter, when we think of a feature back in the NFL, a lot of people will equate it to an 85, 90% opportunity share running back, but that is a very rare feat in the NFL. And only Christian McCaffrey can say that he is going to have that 85, 90% share in the NFL. So the fact that Jamal Williams is going to be involved is something I'm not denying. He will be involved to some extent, but Jamal Williams was paid backup running back money in free agency. 2 years, $6 million is not that much money for a backup running back. That is legitimate backup running back market money. It's not like he got 2 years, $16 million like Kenyon Drake did for the Las Vegas Raiders. And Albert Breer of NFL Network has been at Lions camp pretty much all offseason and has noted the fact that DeAndre Swift is going to be a bell cow. And having Jamal Williams as the veteran mentor to a guy like DeAndre Swift has only helped his development, has only helped him become more efficient. And in this tweet, he also said Williams is also bringing more than expected and should carve out a nice role. Now, that part's going to scare some people, but it doesn't scare me because Jamal Williams had a nice role in Green Bay the past couple of years. 36% of the opportunities last year is what Jamal Williams commanded, and he was so inefficient in an elite situation. This is a guy that is not that great of a running back, and he was in an offense led by an MVP quarterback last year with one of the best offensive lines in football and with another great breather back in Aaron Jones to help take some of the work off of him. So 119 carries, 35 targets, that's what he had last year, and that's what people are scared of. I'm not scared one bit. On top of all that, the Lions ran the ball at a bottom 5 clip last year. And I know you guys are probably thinking, well, they're going to run the ball at a low clip this year too, because they're going to lose a lot of games. But in my opinion, and based on historical trends, they're still going to commit to the run game, whether they're winning games or not, because the former Los Angeles Chargers head coach, Anthony Lynn, is now their offensive coordinator. And the Chargers won 7 games last year and ranked 9th in total rush attempts. This is a guy that will commit to the run despite losing games. And I think with DeAndre Swift, all we really need from a volume perspective is that 15 to 20 opportunities per game, around that 18 range, similar to what we see from a guy like Aaron Jones. And you guys can see this on the screen right now, but DeAndre Swift last year, in games where he had more than 10 carries, just 10, not 20, not 15, just 10 carries, this was a guy that was averaging 21.22 PPR points per game. Offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn and head coach Dan Campbell have used these efficient receiving backs before. Dan Campbell came from the New Orleans Saints where they used Alvin Kamara. Anthony Lynn came from the Los Angeles Chargers where they used Austin Eckler. I think that is the framework for how they're going to deploy a guy like DeAndre Swift. So that's the volume concerns. Now let's get to the situation. Everybody thinks this is going to be a terrible team. They're going to win 2 games. They're going to have the first overall pick, right? If that happens, which I don't think it's going to, this is a game script proof running back. The Lions won 5 games last year. And I think that's probably what we're looking at again, 5, 6, 7 win team at most. But this is a veteran quarterback-led team with Jared Goff, a top 10 offensive line now with the addition of Penei Sewell, and they have some pieces on offense. Swift, Hawkinson, maybe Amon-Ra St. Brown can contribute. We still have some tertiary receivers that can help. This team will not be a dumpster fire is basically what I'm getting at. I think this is a team that's going to be a top 25 scoring offense in the NFL. And I think they're being treated currently right now like they're going to be the 32nd ranked offense in the NFL. And I don't think that's the case. But like I said, this running back is game script proof. So if the worst happens, this offense is terrible, DeAndre Swift's still going to be great for fantasy because this is a running back that was number 6 in yards per route run among running backs last year, number 6 in yards created per touch last year, and he averaged about 5.5 yards per touch as a rookie playing for a 5-win team with a very small role in the offense. So this is an uber efficient running back, great in the receiving game, and he can command targets. You guys can see this on the screen. The top 7 running backs last year at commanding targets, basically getting open and catching the ball, 48 of these running backs with 125 plus touches. DeAndre Swift ranked 5th among running backs with 24.78% of the time that he was running a route, he was getting targeted. So that's exactly what you want to see out of a rookie running back. And before his injury last year, if you look at the rookie running back's grades in pass protection, he was number 2 only to Zach Moss. So we have a guy that can stay on the field on all 3 downs because he's good in pass protection. He's great as a receiver. And people are very scared of him because of Jamal Williams. And his second season, in my opinion, could look a lot like Christian McCaffrey's. And if you remember, we were very worried about CJ Anderson in Christian McCaffrey's second season because we thought that CJ Anderson was going to get this early down role and take away all the carries from Christian McCaffrey. Well, that's exactly what we're thinking with Jamal Williams. And I'm not buying it again. I bought into it back then, and I'm not going to fall for it again. Christian McCaffrey was the RB3 in overall finish on the back of 100 plus targets and 220 carries for a 7-win team in 2018. And the last thing that I will address is the groin injury, which some people are going to be concerned with DeAndre Swift. He hasn't played a single game in the preseason, but the doctors that I trust, Dr. Jesse Morris of the Fantasy Doctors, thinks this, and I'm paraphrasing basically what he said in his whole DeAndre Swift breakdown, but he said this injury is one that can linger if it's not treated properly, but the Lions have been smart with DeAndre Swift. It reminds Dr. Morris of David Montgomery's groin injury from last year, where we all freaked out about David Montgomery. Oh my God, how long is he going to be out? But the Bears were patient with David Montgomery. They saw and let him rehab as he, got more comfortable. And David Montgomery played 16 games last year, didn't miss a single game. It's been around 3 weeks since DeAndre Swift sustained this injury. So monitor it before you take him. If you have your draft this weekend or something like that, make sure you monitor what his injury status is. But I am not concerned about it. I have drafted him in both of the 2 redraft leagues that I have drafted for thus far in round 3. So I am not concerned. This is a guy that in the mid to late third is a absolute smash RB2 pick for me. I started my draft yesterday with Devontae Adams and Antonio Gibson, swung back around at the 3-9 and took DeAndre Swift. Absolutely phenomenal value in my opinion. So make sure you guys are targeting Swift in that 3rd round range. All right, breakout candidate number 3, Trey Lance, quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, quarterback 19 right now overall in ADP, 133 overall on multi-site, 104th overall on Underdog Fantasy. Now, again, I don't want to assume because when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So for those of you guys who don't know who Trey Lance is, Trey Lance, you should see his player profile on the screen right now. He was the 3rd overall pick in the 2021 draft. The 49ers traded their 12th overall pick, their 1st rounder next year, and their 1st rounder in 2023. So that's 3 first rounders to go up to number 3 overall and grab the North Dakota State signal caller. Tremendous prospect, right? Tremendous prospect with great tools from a small school. Sound familiar? Sounds like Josh Allen. And the guy I actually compared Trey Lance to was Steve McNair. And if you guys watched Steve McNair back in the day, he was this like whirling dervish, like on the run, throwing, running quarterback that was great for fantasy if we played a lot of fantasy back then. And I was a little too young back then, but Steve McNair nonetheless is the comparison. 1,243 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns in the 17 games that Trey Lance started as a quarterback. This is a guy with a huge arm, great ability to move off platform and throw off platform, and is a tremendous runner of the football. With the 49ers, he's flashed that big play upside so far in the preseason games and that rushing ability. Once he takes over as the starting quarterback for the 49ers, this is a top 10 fantasy quarterback. When you look at the passing talent that he has, the rushing ability that he has, the weapons he's throwing to, the protection that he has, which is a top 6 offensive line, in our opinion, according to our draft guide, and the play caller that he has in Kyle Shanahan, everything is set up for Trey Lance to be phenomenal this year in fantasy. Jimmy Garoppolo is the only reason that his ADP is quarterback 19 right now. If he were announced as the starter right now, right this second, his ADP is immediately in the top 10 quarterbacks because of that rushing ability. Now, on the screen right now, you guys might be wondering, well, when is Trey Lance going to start games? I don't want to be holding a guy for 10 weeks of the season and him not be on the field. 23 quarterbacks since 2010 have been selected in the top 10 overall draft picks of the NFL draft. The average first start of those quarterbacks occurred by week 4.9 or about week 5 of their rookie season. And 19 of 23 started before week 5. Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, Patrick Mahomes, and Jake Locker were the only ones that started after week 5 of their first season. And with Mahomes and Tua, they had capable veterans ahead of them on the depth chart, which makes sense. Locker was injured and Jared Goff played for a dumpster fire organization. So in my opinion, Trey Lance is getting on the field sooner rather than later. You don't trade up 3 first-round picks for a guy and sit him his rookie season. It's not like an Aaron Rodgers situation where he fell to 25 and he was a great prospect and they just took him because the value was there. No, they went up, they were aggressive, and they got their guy. This guy is going to be on the field sooner rather than later. A lot of people are going to project Jimmy Garoppolo to play 10 games. Not me. This is a guy that's getting on the field before week 5, if I have anything to say about it. And if you want to cover your own ass, grab yourself a quarterback like Kirk Cousins or Baker Mayfield or Tua, somebody who's going to be starting games right at the beginning of the season and who has a good schedule. You can grab Kirk Cousins in the 12th round, swing back around in round 13, and grab Trey Lance. Now you have a ceiling and floor combination at your quarterback position. And once Trey Lance starts games, this is going to be a league-winning type of quarterback for you. So breakout number 2 on this list, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver of the Denver Broncos, currently going off the board as wide receiver 30, 72 overall, according to multi-site ADP, 52 overall on Underdog. Now, you guys probably heard me talk about Jerry Jeudy already in the second-year wide receiver breakout video, but if you guys missed that video, you guys should see this graph on the screen. We want to target second-year wide receivers, and Danny's going to touch on it with his breakout candidates as well. But when you're targeting second-year wide receivers, you're getting the highest chance of a breakout rate over the past number of years. You guys can see that peak for picks 1 to 100 drafted players is their second year of their NFL season. And that's exactly what you're going to be getting with Jerry Jeudy. As the number 15 overall pick in the NFL draft last year, he has the draft capital and the talent to achieve that. From a separation standpoint, too, I'll refer to reception perception again. This was a guy that ranked 87th percentile against man coverage, 75th against press coverage. So this is a guy that can win in the NFL. He can win and create separation at the NFL level, similar to what we saw from his teammate Calvin Ridley in his rookie season. If you guys recall, too, that Jerry Jeudy was in our sleepers video last year, right? The video that is the highest viewed video on this channel. I put it out last summer on my birthday. And if you told me that Cortland Sutton was going to go down week 2 with an ACL tear, I would have told you Jerry Jeudy was going to win people leagues. Now, the fact that he finished outside the top 40 wide receivers as a rookie is definitely a disappointment. But here's why I have hope. Number 1, I think he will improve as a player. His drops, his inconsistencies, I think he's going to shape that up now with a full offseason in his second year. Number 2, his quarterback situation is improved tremendously. A big tank to his value last year, and a number of the games that he was bad were because he was starting games with quarterbacks like Kendall Hinton, Brett Rippon, and Jeff Driscoll. He didn't even have Drew Lock for these games. So he was absolutely hamstrung from a quarterback play standpoint. Now in comes Teddy Bridgewater. And why I'm excited about Teddy Bridgewater is because Teddy Bridgewater supported not 1, not 2, but 3 wide receivers who finished inside the top 30 wide receivers in points per game in fantasy last year, and a running back who was top 12 in points per game. So despite having a bad offensive line and not that great of a team, Teddy Bridgewater was able to support DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel. Now he only has 2 wide receivers in Denver that he has to support. And stylistically, Jerry Jeudy is exactly the type of receiver that Teddy Bridgewater is going to like because he gets open, he creates separation, and the throwing windows are very simple for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater who doesn't take a lot of risks. And number 3 of why I like Teddy Bridgewater for Jerry Jeudy, the big one, is he is an accurate quarterback. Last year, Jerry Jeudy ranked number 107 at wide receiver in target accuracy, number 102 in target quality rating, and number 105 in catchable target rate. Only 71 of the 113 targets that Jerry Jeudy saw last year were actually deemed to be catchable targets. So throwaways, terrible throws, all that stuff went into those 113 targets. And Jerry Jeudy's 105th catchable target rate of 62.8% only netted him an 856-yard rookie season, despite having well over 100 targets. If Teddy Bridgewater starts, and we know Teddy Bridgewater is the starter now, we can expect that number, that 62.8% from last year, to be in the 80% range. Because if you look at DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, even pass receivers like Michael Thomas, they were consistently in that 80% range. And the average of those top 3 wide receivers in Carolina last year was 80.4%. Now, if you take that 80.4% and apply it to Jerry Jeudy's 113 targets, that would have made a whopping 20 more targets of his catchable, 71 targets to 91 targets. And his receiving output, based on his yards per target last year, his yards per catchable target, would have been 1,095 receiving yards. And that's despite all the drops and inconsistencies he had as a rookie. So Teddy Bridgewater is starting. Jeudy is going to smash that wide receiver 30-ish price tag. To me, it's a similar situation to what we saw with Deontay Johnson, producing with bad quarterback play in 2019. Comes out his second year, has 144 targets, and is a top-end fantasy wide receiver. He's a big-time upside target of mine in rounds 6 through 8 of drafts. Am I worried about Courtland Sutton? Absolutely not, because number one, he's coming off of a torn ACL and may not be 100%. Number two, I think Jerry Jeudy is the more talented player, the more talented receiver. And number three, as I mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater can support multiple guys. He's done it already, so I think he can do it again. This is an absolute smash pick in the round 6 to 8 range that you're getting him. Now, to the number one breakout candidate on this list, drum roll please, Chase Claypool, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wide receiver 25, 64th overall pick, according to multi-site ADP, 53rd overall pick on Underdog Fantasy. Now, of course, the same second-year wide receiver argument applies to Chase Claypool as it did for Jerry Jeudy, because he's also a second-year wide receiver. That jump that he's supposed to take is also applying to him. As a rookie wide receiver last year, Chase Claypool took a few weeks to secure a role, but once week 5 hit and he was playing consistent snaps, he was the wide receiver 11 in fantasy throughout the rest of the season from that point forward. And we've already seen that elite production, but according to reception perception, the film doesn't lie either. 74th percentile versus man coverage with a 71% success rate against man coverage, 75% success rate against press coverage, 80th percentile in that regard. And you guys can see on his routes, he was above average in 8 of 10 routes that he ran. This one's really hard for people to imagine, right? Because everybody is going to point to the fact that how can Chase Claypool be this breakout candidate if Juju Smith-Schuster is still there and Deontay Johnson is still there and this team drafted a first-round running back? Maybe they don't pass the ball as much, but here's the easy way to think about it. The easy way to wrap your brain around why Chase Claypool is a breakout candidate, because a rookie wide receiver last year who stands 6'4", 238 pounds, who runs a 4.42 40-yard dash. So a height, weight, speed freak. That guy whose best comparable players are guys like Calvin Johnson, DK Metcalf, Brandon Marshall, and Mike Evans from an athleticism and a build standpoint. That guy just recorded 11 total touchdowns and commanded 109 targets in his rookie season, despite playing on the same team as 120 plus target receivers, 2 of them. 144 targets for Deontay Johnson last year, 120 plus for Juju Smith-Schuster. And this guy only played on 62% of the snaps last year. He only ran a route 62% of the time. Don't you want to bet on that receiver? That's the way I look at Chase Claypool. It is riskier and it's more of a projection, but this isn't the running back position we're talking about. We're not relying on the coaching staff to get Chase Claypool on the field, because we know now from preseason usage that he's going to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. And talent trumps all at the wide receiver position. If you can get open, if the quarterback throws it to you and when you're open, you catch the ball, you make things happen, you make big plays and score touchdowns like Chase Claypool did, guess what? Your quarterback is going to reward you by throwing you the ball more. It's exactly what we saw from A.J. Brown, his rookie season to his second year, which was last year. It's exactly what we saw from DK Metcalf's rookie season to his second year. Both of those guys experienced big-time jumps at targets because they earned them. And that's exactly what Chase Claypool did as a rookie. When we look at this situation again, we have a gunslinger quarterback. Ben Roethlisberger has always been a guy that is willing to push the ball downfield. Whether he still has the arm to or not, doesn't matter. He's still going to do it. And a freak of nature wide receiver. And am I the only one who's giddy by that? This reminds me of Martavis Bryant on steroids. That's exactly the way I look at Chase Claypool. And there's no Antonio Brown to take away Martavis Bryant's targets in this situation. And the other guys will be involved. I'm not denying that. In fact, I really like Deontay Johnson for fantasy this year. Chase Claypool's targets, though, as you guys can see on the screen, were very valuable. Only 42% of the time was he receiving a target that was not either a red zone target, an end zone target, or a deep target. So his valuable targets are something that is going to propel him to the best fantasy receiver in this offense. His targets were worth 11% more than Deontay Johnson's and 12% more than Juju Smith-Schuster. So theoretically, Chase Claypool doesn't need to be the target leader of this team. He doesn't need to lead this team in targets to be the most valuable for fantasy football this year. And the same way that DK Metcalf didn't lead the Seahawks in targets last year, Tyler Lockett led the Seahawks in targets. But DK Metcalf was the most valuable for fantasy because he gets the downfield targets and he gets the red zone targets. In fact, I'd actually venture a guess to say that Chase Claypool is 3rd on this team in targets. I'd be willing to say he's my biggest breakout candidate, even if he finishes 3rd on this team in targets, because that is how big his upside is from a big play perspective, from a red zone perspective. So in my opinion, you should be drafting this dude in that round 5 to 6 range and thank me later. I play to win leagues. This is a league winning caliber wide receiver. I am not drafting low upside options like Juju Smith-Schuster, and Odell Beckham Jr. over the next potential DK Metcalf. I won't even draft a guy like Robert Woods over Chase Claypool. Even though Robert Woods has been so good for so long, he doesn't have that elite upside that Chase Claypool has. So I'm going to be shooting for that in that mid-round range of my draft. So just for fun here at the end of this video, I hope you guys did enjoy this. Just for fun, I'm going to quickly review who was on this list last year. So last year we had Cam Akers, Jalen Reagor, AJ Brown, Jonnu Smith, and Ronald Jones. So some mixed results there, but I was bang on about Cam Akers. It did take a little while, obviously, but he did definitely break out and win some people leagues down the stretch. Jalen Reagor was a complete miss. That one's on me, but I think my process was sound. He had the opportunity in front of him. He just wasn't a good enough player. I think Devonta Smith, and it looks like I'm going back to the well with an Eagles wide receiver, is going to make up for that miss of Jalen Reagor last year. AJ Brown, home run. I hit that one out of the park. I think this Chase Claypool one for me feels like AJ Brown last year, if that gives you guys any kind of confidence. Jonnu Smith was great for fantasy last year before he started to get injured. He was a tight end 1 in fantasy over the first 5 weeks of the season and still finished with a respectable tight end finish and above the ADP that he was being selected at. So I'll count that one as like a partial win. And Ronald Jones, prior to the week 14 COVID and injury that he dealt with, was a top 15 running back in fantasy, just like I said he would be. So that was kind of my breakout candidates. Again, stay tuned for Danny's top 5 breakout candidates. You're going to hear some more second-year wide receivers on that list. I hope you did enjoy this. If you did, please like the video. Please comment any of your thoughts down below. Comment your best and most favorite breakout candidate down below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out tremendously, helps us grow. If you guys want access to our rankings for your fantasy draft, you can go to underdogfantasy.com, deposit using promo code FSE, using $10. You'll get $25 on top of whatever you deposit to draft with on the site. And you'll also get both of our draft guides for free. So you get our dynasty rankings, redraft rankings, super flex, half PPR, PPR, whatever you guys need. You'll get our sleepers, our busts, our breakouts, like some of the ones that I mentioned here. You'll also get strategy articles and offensive line stuff. Everything you could need is in our draft guide, all for the price of $10 that you can win money with on top of that. So best deal on the internet. Pristine Auctions contest is now closed. Winner will be announced in the coming days, so stay tuned for that. We're still working some back-end stuff with that out with them. So peace out, guys, and enjoy your Monday.
Wire me the money.